Let me see. There it is. That's the button I was aiming for. Okay. First things first, I'm going to ask everybody to rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Okay. All right. All right. Next is a roll call. Could we please?
Okay. Vice Chair Branconi.
Present.
Committee Member Brennan.
Present.
Committee Member DiMeno.
Present.
Youth Member Montgomery Yale.
Present.
Chair Lopsinger.
Present.
Committee Member Coster.
Present.
And we can let the record show that Committee Member Wyrick is not in attendance.
Okay, moving along for the approval of the agenda. Is there anybody from the committee who has any changes to the agenda? Seeing none, we'll move along. Does anybody have a motion for public comment? No. Does anybody have, well, okay, I'm out of order here. From the committee members.
No, none.
None. Okay. All right. Ask the clerk to perform the roll call vote. Okay. I think we're good there. So
Approve the agenda.
I've got the wrong agenda. There we go. Sorry about that. Okay.
What the heck?
Yeah, we have a few different.
This is October 3rd, this thing says.
Yeah.
Oh, because you guys. That's the minutes for the previous meeting because it's been amended. Do you need the agenda
Yep.
for today?
I have one.
Yes.
Okay, there we go. I was on the wrong sheet of paper. I think I'm on the right one now. Okay, now do we have an approval of the agenda? So do I have a motion to approve the agenda?
Motion to approve the agenda.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. Vice Chair Branconi.
Aye.
Committee Member Brennan.
Aye. Excuse me.
Committee Member DiMeno.
Aye.
Chair Lopsinger.
Aye.
Committee Member Coster.
Okay. The agenda has been approved, so next we will, the next item is the public comment portion. Now, I do see a lot of folks in this meeting tonight, which I'm actually excited about. I love the process. I know people are here for a number of reasons, so just so you know, this is going to be open for public comment, but if you're here regarding the following, we will discuss this later. So I'm going to read the issues that we're going to talk about tonight. If you're here for any of those, we will have public comment for that after because that is going to be part of the agenda. So this is for public comment outside of these. So if you're here for West Spain Street from 1st to 5th, 7th Street West, 5th Street West from West Spain to Verano, Newcomb and 1st, MacArthur Lane, 2nd East, East MacArthur, Donner, or 2nd West and Andrews Street. If you're here for any of those, we will have public comment after following the agenda. So that being said, if anybody has any public comment for outside of those, we're happy to take public comment right now. Okay.
We don't have anybody on Zoom either.
Nobody on Zoom. I'm sorry, I should have read this to prep. So I'll read it just so it's part, but sorry. This is just so it's on the record. At this time, members of the public may comment on any item not appearing in the agenda. It is recommended that you keep your comments to 3 minutes or less. Under state law, matters presented under this item cannot be discussed or acted upon by the Traffic Safety Committee at this time. For items appearing on the agenda, the public will be invited to make comments at the time the item comes up for committee consideration. Upon being acknowledged by the chair, please step to the podium and speak to the microphone. And you can begin. Again, once again, nobody's coming up to the podium, and it doesn't sound like anybody's online, so we'll move on. We're going to move on to the consent calendar. All items listed on the consent calendar are considered to be routine and will be acted upon by a single motion. There will be no separate discussion of these items unless members of the committee, staff, or public request specific items to be removed for separate action. At this time, committee may decide to change the order of the agenda. Okay, so the item on here is to receive the minutes of the special meeting from October 3rd.
Yes, and you guys all received amended minutes because there was a technological error, and the vote from the last one was not in the original minutes. It came with the agenda, but you have them in front of you now. That's been fixed.
Okay.
Are there any
Yeah.
questions on that?
I'll just give everybody just a minute
Okay.
to look them over just to make sure we're.
The only thing that was changed is the vote is recognized.
Motion carried unanimously.
Correct.
Yeah,
Yes,
okay.
yeah.
Okay. Is there a motion to approve the minutes from the special meeting from October 3rd?
Yeah, make a motion to approve the minutes, October 3rd, the special meeting, the minutes.
Hang on just one second. Just reviewing this. I don't know if it's a huge deal, but I don't believe I made the motion to recommend the speed tables. It says Mark Branconi did, but I believe it was Mark Domeno. Is that
Good eye.
correct?
Yeah,
I
good
believe
eye.
you made the motion.
Yep, good eye, sorry.
It went around a few times.
Okay, yeah, there were some corrections and some clarification, but
Okay. Okay, but I can change that. It's
Okay.
fine. I did go back and watch the video, but I will go back and check.
okay.
And so
Oh, okay.
with that amendment, we're double checking on it. Then we'll do that.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
And what we could do just to streamline this is we could approve it per what the commission's recollection is. And if it turns out to be something different than that, we'll bring it back to the next meeting.
Yeah.
That sounds good.
It went back and forth quite a few times.
Yeah.
So
Okay. All right. Good catch on that one. Knowing that we can't amend these minutes if we do find a discrepancy at the next meeting, do we have a motion to approve these minutes?
I'll motion to approve these minutes.
Do we have a second?
Second.
All right.
Vice Chair Branconi,
Aye.
Committee Member Brennan,
Aye.
Committee Member Domeno,
Aye.
Chair Lobsinger,
Aye.
Committee Member Coster.
Aye.
The motion carries unanimously.
All right. Excellent. Moving right along. Okay, so now we're moving on to the regular calendar of the Traffic Safety Committee. And these are matters that require discussion and/or action by the Traffic Safety Committee. The first item is discussion on the current status of traffic hazard reports received by the Public Works Department, the procedure for reporting the concerns, and metrics for evaluating them. So I will now turn it over to Director Berger for the report.
Great. Thank you, Chair Lobsinger. In summary, the agenda item, what I wanted to do with the commission tonight is go over the process for intake, evaluation, and then go over the 6 separate traffic hazard reporting forms that we have, other than the one that we're all familiar with. But these are the ones that are pending in our log. We have a log that we created to follow these through cradle to grave. We're going to make sure that if anybody has to pick them up in the future, they're going to know exactly where they got left off, whether it was resolved, if it was resolved, how it was resolved, and any sort of not a whole, as far as the summary goes, not a whole lot of back and forth between engineering, the traffic engineering safety team. That'll all get handled in these individual traffic hazard reporting forms as we take them on. And you'll see that some of them are already resolved. And we've worked with the applicant that turned them in, and you'll know more as we go through these. And I'm just going to take them in order. Prior to starting on the first one, the thing that's up on your monitor right now is just a generic traffic hazard reporting form. And it just includes the basic information. We're trying to make this as easy as possible for the public to get a few signatures from some of their neighbors and get the ball rolling on these. And what they, and just a point of clarification too, I'm going to go through all of them. And then I would expect that we could get public comment from the individuals that are here representing the different ones. This is probably only going to take me like 15 minutes to make it through all 6. And then we could have a discussion by all the commission can follow after that. And then on one of these, our sheriff's department is here tonight to assist me on, and that's the one on MacArthur. So I'm just going to go ahead and jump in and get started, and you're free to ask a question or a comment as we go along. And realistically, what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to give you not a comprehensive look at every single one of these, but just the nature and circumstance of each one. And I'll also be talking about some of them where, like for instance, Spain Street is the one that we've had the longest. And Spain Street, I already have a plan on Spain Street, and that's why I'm looking for input tonight, both from some of the Spain Street folks that are here tonight and also from the commission. And so we could take each one of these a 30-minute discussion. We could take, okay, great, that one's resolved, we're moving on. So I'll go ahead and get rolling. And like I was saying, the traffic hazard reporting form, which is on the screen right now, and Cathy's just going to kind of scroll through this as I flip through our agenda item. So we asked to describe traffic safety issues that are associated with the location. We ask people to describe the location that is affected. And then down at the bottom, underneath the signatures, we say, would the neighbor be willing to contribute the cost of providing a traffic calming measure? The next page, we just have our log that I'm going to be going over tonight. And then I switch into our first one, which is Spain Street. And Spain Street has been in the system for a while. We have quite a few signatures from quite a few residents. This is very well represented by the neighborhood. And then as we get into what I'll call the substantive part of this, keep going all the way down to the end, Cathy, and go to the next page and just stop it right there.
Mike, I'm sorry, can I interrupt you
Up
real
just a
quick?
little.
I'm sorry.
Yes, of course.
I know we discussed this earlier, that we would go through these items in order, and we would have a discussion, and then I said we would open up to public comment at the end. And I'm just looking for maybe a little direction from everybody else on this committee. And this is just a thought of maybe doing the public comment on this specific issue. Is that allowed?
We could do that too.
Because I don't want to get to the we're all jotting notes, and I know we're all paying attention, but I don't want to get to the, start up with Spain from 1st to 5th, and then by the time we get down to 2nd MacArthur, I'm gonna have so many things rolling around in my poor little head that I think it would be better for the
Let's do that.
community to speak at these items one at a time.
That's great.
Okay.
So I'll go through, I'll summarize each one, and then the committee can ask staff if there's any questions. Then we can open it up to public comment, and then we can have further discussion.
I was gonna say summarize the first one. Let's summarize West Spain. We can talk about it, and if somebody wants to come up from the public and speak about it, let's do it then. That way we're doing everything in one shot.
Sounds good.
Because I'll get confused. I don't know if
Perfect.
I'm good with this. My only question is, are there any common threads that would have some bearing on decisions that we make? That's the only.
Not necessarily. I think that there are common threads. Spain Street is probably the most complex one that we have. And so I completely agree with the committee's suggestion to do them one by one. Yeah, and these will go quicker as we go through, you'll see.
Yeah, I just want to make sure we you know, I think if everybody's okay with that, let's do it that way. I would.
I agree.
Okay. Okay.
Okay, there's one sheet of paper that's on your desk that's from the Zimmermans that is reflective, that pertains to this item, and it was brought in on Monday after the agenda was posted. It was emailed to me late Friday after I was gone. So anyway, it's on there, and that pertains to this issue as well.
Got it. Perfect.
Okay? I
Excellent.
put a copy on each of your desk.
All right.
Yep.
Okay. Thank you, Director Berger. My apologies for interrupting. Please.
Great.
Please.
And the attachment that Cathy's referring to is primarily surrounding installation of a traffic circle at the corner of an intersection of Spain Street and 3rd Street, right there at Vallejo's home driveway, going up to Vallejo's home. So on the page that we're on currently, this discusses a lot of the neighbors' concerns regarding the area. And just going down in order, they're requesting installation of a small traffic circle, installation of white striping on road surfaces, installation of speed tables, installation of solar operated speed signs, that would be the flashing radar signs, installation of a 4-way stop sign at West Spain and 3rd, additional improvements for all users west of Spain Street, installation of bulb outs, improved bicycle safety, red curbs, install commercial vehicle prohibition signs, and provide sufficient funding for the police department for public education, driver programs, and for enforcement of laws. What Public Works has done on this since we've received it, right after we received it, well, shortly after we received it, we went out and we did a speed survey. And the speed survey can be found about 5 or 6 pages down into the item and up one, right there. And this is a summary of the speed survey. And what it demonstrated was that the average speed was 26 miles an hour. And this was taken close to the intersection of, I don't remember the exact location where we did this, but it was right there in Spain Street, in between 1st and 5th, and it was close to 3rd Street. Yeah, and I could find the exact location on that if it is an issue. The average speed, like I said, was 26.14 miles an hour. 85% of the cars are going 31 miles an hour or less. And that's what the speed survey indicated. There's some more data in there, and I could answer questions about any other questions the committee would have. What the current plan is for Spain Street is this street is going to be repaved. And we're putting together we're taking an item to council next Wednesday to put together design plans and specifications, PS&E, for repaving this stretch of Spain Street. What we don't want to do is go out and put in a bunch of striping and legends and then pave it over or grind it out 6 months later. So next summer, we're going to be paving this street, and at that time, we're going to have the contractor put in 100% of the items, unless it's real easy for the crews to do it and we get a good bang for our buck. We're just going to pay the contractor to put in all of the traffic calming measures. And that'll include legends, striping. Public Works might put in signage, but we're going to put in signage. We're going to put in a radar speed sign potentially, and we're going to do red curb painting. And a couple of the residents have asked for, and we're probably going to get this red curb painting done before. And I'm in the process of doing this right now because there's some current changes to state law in painting red curbs and their proximity to bulb outs and crosswalks. And so we're trying to incorporate, and this was just sent to me by the sheriff's office probably about 2 weeks ago. And so between 2024 and 2025, PD sheriffs are going to give warnings if there's no red curb on, I believe it's 15 feet from a bulb out and 20 feet from a crosswalk. And these are going to turn into state law, whether it's painted or not, in 2025. And so for a 1-year grace period, if the thing isn't painted, you can be warned by PD but not ticketed. And we won't be working a whole lot on that. We're either going to go out and paint them ahead of the state law, and it's always enforceable. But in 2025, it's going to turn into just like a fire hydrant. That if you're within 15 feet of that fire hydrant, you're going to get a ticket, whether it's painted red or not. And a crosswalk and a bulb out are going to be the same thing. And so that no parking zone is going to extend away from the bulb outs and away from the crosswalks. And it's a ticketable offense starting January 1st, 2025. And that's a state law, not a local law. So we're thinking about doing some of that work because one of the things the residents have pointed out that's warranted is when you're traveling westbound on Spain Street, before the crosswalk, if there's a car parked right there, there is a visibility issue. And so what we want to do is we want to paint some red curb for at least one parking stall in that area. And that'll increase the visibility. On the other side of the street, it's going to be on the west side for eastbound. Because after the crosswalk's nowhere near as important visibility wise as before the crosswalk. So that's one of the things that we're probably going to get done before winter if we can make that happen. And I think we'll be able to paint the red paint much easier than the thermoplastic, which is really sticky with the temperatures. Other things that we're looking into for this on this traffic hazard reporting form are installation of a traffic circle. And this is something that the residents have been pushing. We took that to our traffic engineer and he checked the layout of that. And a traffic circle can work there. I have some paperwork here on it tonight if anybody wants to take a look at it. But a traffic circle, we do have enough real estate to put one of these in here. Unlike Fifth and Napa. Fifth and Napa, because it's a T, we don't have the real estate to put a traffic circle there. But we have the amount of square footage to have a traffic circle work. And then also what some municipalities in Sonoma County are doing is they're putting them in temporary. And they look a little bit, they look temporary. But for the first one that we're going to be putting in for the city of Sonoma, that's something that the committee could consider because it's not expensive. It can be done. It can be done with our local crew. Because it's going to just involve striping, some signage, and there's incoming and outgoing striping that has to be done. So it's not just putting it in the middle of the intersection. But here again, I don't want to get too far ahead of this without having a program for it. And if a program is developed, then we want to make sure that the proposed locations meet the criteria of the program. And so, similar to speed tables, we want to make sure that we have an understanding of what the requirements are and that more than likely, if we develop a program for that, it's going to end up being blessed by city council in one way or another. So I treat these the same way. However, because of their temporary ease of installation, it's possible that we could move forward on this, but it's definitely something that I'd take to council and get their approval on if the committee was interested in doing something like that. Now, additional measures are flashing pedestrian crossings, like the one that we have at France Andrix and Clay Street, and we're going to be putting one in the next month or so at Malay at the high school, and then also bulb outs. And the reason that those go in that order is we can do something similar to what's been done on Napa Street east of town, relatively cheap. When you start talking about concrete work and foundations and going vertical and just big construction projects and utilities and fire hydrants and things like that, it gets way more expensive. So with Spain Street, that I'm going to say is a summary of the current plan and things that have been done to date by the city. And I'll open the floor to any questions to staff.
I'm a huge fan, as you're aware, of circles and roundabouts and whatnot, and not a big fan of stop signs at intersections. It's about traffic calming, not traffic stopping, as I like to say. What's the likelihood of these traffic circles, as easy as they are to install? I think on the east side of town, there's 17, did you guys count, did James, I think, counted 17 stop sign intersections, something like that, on the east side of town. Are those easy enough, and I'm not trying to get ahead of you either, but are those easy enough to install in that regard?
So the traffic circles, I'm looking at one that's at Upham and Bassett. And basically, this could be Cathy, it might be, I'm not sure what Petaluma, thank you. So it doesn't look like a whole lot of effort, let's just say. It's going to require some plans. It's going to require a little bit of engineering. But, I mean, this thing could be installed in a couple, 3 days at the most. Yeah. And it doesn't look permanent.
And if it really doesn't work, then you guys can take them out and go on to Plan B, whatever that might be.
Fairly easy. And see, this is not the amount of striping I'm worried about putting down and then losing it when we do the paving project. This is relatively cheap, and with the blessing of the city's traffic engineer, you know, something like this is an option in the future, near future. Yeah, could be.
So, I have a few questions here. First of all, just to clarify, this would be Spain and Third.
Correct.
Okay, I just want to make sure. Yeah, West Spain and West Third. One of my concerns, and I would need to see the roundabout itself, is, well, some of the complaints, or I should say, what I would say is legitimate concerns, because on my way here I got stuck behind a charter bus that decided to stop in the middle of Main Street or Spain Street, which I thought was ironic, but. My thought with roundabouts and those giant commercial buses, could that potentially cause an issue? And it's kind of a hypothetical. I don't expect an answer, but it's more of these buses and trucks, they do go down Spain Street. I know that, and that's logistically, you know, that could create an issue. I'm less of a roundabout person just because I feel like a chain is only as strong as its weakest link, and when one person messes it up, it screws up the whole thing. I mean, I'm all for traffic calming, but that would just be one of my concerns about the roundabout right there.
Yeah, and just to clarify, this is a traffic circle, and there's a big difference between a roundabout and a traffic circle.
Okay, I use them interchangeably, just a circle in the middle of the street.
Yeah, and, you know, this is a big concern of mine, and that's why I had our traffic engineer look at it, and he basically put together a plan and utilized all the dimensions that we have out there, and he's telling me it will work. And I'm assuming that he knows that we have tour buses that go up and down the street, and GHD, these guys, they're traffic engineers. And so I would imagine that the tour bus and one of the better things too is that when you install these on a permanent basis, you can make it truck friendly, because I have installed some of these over in Napa, in Gasser behind Home Depot there, and you can make it so it's mountable. So like if a big truck does come through, you can run your tires right over the top of it, and it's just, you know, without getting into the middle.
Okay.
Yeah. So my understanding is that these traffic circles, he's checked the dimensions and they will work.
Just another question on that note. Is it possible, and I'm assuming yes, is it possible to have those flashing crossing signs right there in conjunction with the traffic circle? And I'll say this because I walk there with my family every weekend, and we cross to go down to the bike path and walk around. So I'm sure maybe people have heard me yelling at people, thanks a lot for not stopping. So I like the flashing traffic signals way better.
So the rectangular rapid flashing beacons, which we've installed 2 of here, we have 2 more in the yard to install at Malay, right at the high school, and then Patton Street. Okay, and Patton and France Androoks, those were two spots, and everybody knows what street I'm talking about. Some people call it Androoks, some people call it Andrew. It depends on how long you've been here in Sonoma. I'm always going to call it Androoks. Anyway, those RRFBs, the locations at France, Androoks, and Patton, those are replacing in-ground lighted crossings. Okay, that was pretty much a no-brainer to be able to put those in a location where we had in-ground lighted crossings. Okay, we also had a lot of complaints at Traintown. And so Clay Street, here again, that was easy. Malay, it's at the high school. I mean, you're going to have, that thing's going to get used more than, any other location in town. Now, when we get into the second item tonight, which is a repeat from a meeting before, but I still wanted to go through it again and discuss it and make sure that everybody on the committee is aware of what our plans are, because the other spots that we had, those in-ground lighted crossings, which are very maintenance intensive, and they break down a lot, are at 2nd Street, at Whole Foods there. Yeah, so there's one there close to the firehouse, and then also on the bike trail at 5th West. Okay, and so my plan right now, Public Works plan, is to go through and put RRFBs at those two locations, because right now we currently have a broken system there that used to work in the old days. So what I want to do is I want to put RRFBs in those locations. The next ones that we put up could be a committee decision. And if the committee feels really strongly about putting one at 3rd and Spain West, then right now it's currently not on the diagram. Well, we can put it on the diagram. And so my emphasis was to replace the ones where we currently have in-ground lights and then go from there. And, putting it on the bike trail at 5th Street West, that to me, highly traveled. And then also, and you'll see as we go down the list, that's one of the complaints that we have speeding cars on, is 5th West in between Verano and Spain Street. So those are great for traffic calming. And then committee member Branconi, I believe you were the one that went out to 5th and Napa and was crossing at the bulb outs. And, I'm a little bit surprised that request hasn't already come in to put flashing lights there for a pedestrian crossing. But to me, it's a matter of a few things here. One is the number of crossings that we have. And obviously we want to prioritize the locations. These things are $12,000 per location, material only for solar powered. Okay, then in addition to that, it's a 6.5, when we do them in Caltrans right away, it's a 6 foot deep by 2.5 foot drilled hole with a reinforced concrete cage in it. Yeah, this is no small undertaking. And the first one that we tried putting in, completely washed out by water. Second one, we had a live fiber optic in it that wasn't marked. And these are the surprises that you get when you're trying to drill a 6 foot deep hole, 2.5 foot diameter, where there wasn't one previously. So there's a lot of obstacles to putting these things in, but we're 2 for 2 on the locations we're at, and we're going to be 3 for 3 on Malay in just a little while. So we can put them in, but they are expensive. And that's why we want to prioritize where we're putting them. But here again, and what I talked to the traffic engineer about this week was the frequency of people that are crossing Spain at 3rd. Because that's unknown to me, and I can't remember the last time I put my brakes on and let somebody cross in that crosswalk. That's not scientific. But we got to get some idea of how many people are going to actually use this thing. Because when we put it in, we're going to know exactly how many are using it. Because it's all recorded, it's app-based, and there's these things are pretty high-tech in terms of functionality. So we can tell you on a daily basis from the day we installed the one at Clay Street how many people have used it on every day. And so, and it also gives us alerts about when it's out or when it's malfunctioning, et cetera, et cetera. Yeah, so kind of a long way of answering your question, but.
No, that's good. No, that's perfect.
Out of curiosity, why choose a traffic circle over a roundabout for that particular intersection? I'm roughly familiar with the differences.
Well, roundabouts are way bigger. and they require a lot more construction. The roundabouts I'm familiar with are the three off of on Highway 29 at First Street off ramp, and there's some serious square footage with those. And also, you get into a lot more rules of the road when you're putting a roundabout in, and so just plunking one at an intersection in the middle of town, you got to be really careful about that. With the speed circle, it's much more for a residential area, and there's not as many rules of the road with the speed circle. And roundabouts are way more flexible in terms of being able to handle 2 or 3 lanes of traffic going into and coming out of them.
Gotcha. Thank you.
A couple of times now has been mentioned about downsides to stop signs. Can you fill me in on what that, I mean, aside from forcing people to come to a complete stop, what are the downsides that are being referenced in these situations?
Committee Member Brennan, would you like to answer that question?
Hold my beer. So the first problem with a stop sign generally, and I think our Sonoma Police Department will tell you, they're not completely observed by everyone who goes through them. Sometimes at a high rate of speed, sometimes with a California stop. So the challenge there becomes a little bit of a concern over, I'm going to observe, that guy doesn't, now we've got an accident, people get hurt. The other problem, just in a major way with stop signs is, especially as we face the issues of global warming, cars that have to come to a stop and then accelerate again, they increase their carbon emissions substantially. And so if you can keep the traffic going, then that issue is subsided to a degree. The other thing about a stop sign is that it becomes, for some, a drag strip to the next stop sign. And if I'm most familiar with 4th Street and Napa Street on the east side. I know my son had a ticket for making a safe stop, but not a complete stop, was his line to me. But a lot of people completely ignore it. In times of high traffic volume, particularly during the commute, and again, 4th Street's a good example of that. In fact, 5th Street West and Spain Street is astounding at 8 o'clock in the morning. I fortunately don't have to drive that very frequently, but the cars that back up westbound on Spain Street because of the stop sign at 5th are significant. And so those cars are all sitting at idle in the process. So by having a traffic device that enables people to use their cars to go through an intersection safely, generally it's the roundabout, and if there's not enough size, the traffic circle, essentially take away all the negative things. No one's really stopping. People aren't idling. And so traffic doesn't back up. And the issue about buses and trucks is 18-wheelers. There's theoretically a prohibition against 18-wheel trucks and more in most parts of town, including our neighborhood, and they don't abide by them. And the Sonoma Police Department has said they can't enforce the law as it's written today. But I know the one behind Home Depot in Napa. Napa's done a great job with traffic calming, and that enables trucks. In fact, the paddle that we've got on 5th Street East in Napa, I watched a Lucky's truck shouldn't have been there, 18-wheeler, turning left off of 5th Street East onto Napa Street, going to the Lucky's store, and he drove right over the top of the paddle, and the paddle came right back. So engineers have seen way more than we have, and I'm sure are able to do that.
Yeah, and just Committee Member Branconi, thank you for that explanation. I just wanted to afford you that. But one of the things, too, that I've noticed, this is on 5th Street West, it turns into a parking lot in the afternoon. And really, nobody wants that in their front yard. And this was discussion at 5th and Napa when we got started, that there wasn't a consensus even though there were some documents indicating it, that there was not a consensus with the neighbors about putting a stop sign in. Yeah, so it's, in some cases you think it's a no-brainer, but it gets a little deeper than that. And our traffic engineer has told me that that is not a traffic calming measure. Yeah, a stop sign.
The stop sign.
Yeah. And
Thank you.
I kind of understand that, but at the same time, if people observe the laws, I don't understand why it wouldn't be. But I do know that I've talked to PD, and PD has told me that it can be unsafe if people aren't stopping, and this totally makes sense.
You said you have some information on the small traffic circles. Does it indicate the typical safe speed for entering and traveling through one of those small traffic circles? I'm just trying to get an idea of how much it's actually going to slow traffic.
I even actually have the beginning of an engineered plan here, and I'm not seeing a posted change to the speed. And I could pass this around to the committee and let them take a look at it. I don't see a change to the posted speed, so I'm thinking that you're going to probably want to slow down to 25 to take this.
If the speed limit's 25, you probably want to go less than that. I mean,
Possibly 20.
I would assume that's why I think Mark has a very good question, that should be something posted, identified.
Yeah, that's what I'm just trying to figure out. And then I know that you've already mentioned it, and it's just something that's on my mind, and it kind of has been since our special meeting, is, determining the criteria for putting, whether it be speed tables or traffic circles and things, because, as we heard from, for instance, the fire department, their delays are an issue potentially. And when thinking about it, one time when we were looking at Fifth and Napa on our special meeting, we're talking, I forget, there was 80 calls for service or something in a 1 year period, and we're talking about a potentially 2-second delay if the literature is correct that we were given. But if we start, adding up to potentially 10 of these things in town, those definitely begin to add up. So, I would just like to kind of echo your thoughts on, hey, we really should have a set standard on whether it's accidents, speed, things like that, where we actually put this kind of thing in motion.
Yeah, and one of the recommendations that's going to be going to City Council a week from Wednesday is, if we're serious about specifically speed tables, but this goes straight into traffic circles. If we're serious about doing these types of things, and I don't know that we get into it on bulb outs, but if we're serious about doing these type of things, we want to think about doing a program first, because then it's very simple for committees like this and Public Works to specify whether or not this meets the criteria that we've established. Yeah. So, no, that's a great point. I just want to reemphasize, too, that document that's floating around, that is a draft. And that's why it didn't make it into the agenda. But it's just a little bit of information on traffic circles.
Thank you.
Can I just ask, I know you went over this, and I don't want you to rehash it. I just want to make sure I have it straight. Is what's going to council are going to be plans to repave for the repaving project, and I'm with you. There's no need to do something right this moment, just to have it completely redone over the summer. But what's being presented to the council? A series of options in terms of striping, curb lines, bulb outs, crosswalks. Is there a few different plans, or is just, hey, this is the plan that's being presented to council?
All that's being presented to council is a budget for doing plan specifications and estimate.
Okay,
It's
so
just a budget.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah, it's just authorization for the project to move forward.
But once the project is able to move forward, will there be a few different ideas or options put out there? Will it just be, hey, we hired this group and they're saying let's just do this?
What I'm planning on doing is going to our traffic engineer. He's already familiar with this area because I think about 6 or 7 years ago, they were thinking about getting rid of the striping, the bike the parking on the north side of Spain Street and putting a dedicated bike lane in. And they have a plan that shows that. And the reason that we didn't do that is because there's a bike lane just 2 blocks, block and a half to
Yeah.
the north. And so what we're probably going to do is get GHD to take that set of plans and just modify it a little bit with proposed upgrades for traffic calming, similar to what's out on Napa Street on the east side of town. And then we can push that around for circulation. It isn't one of these things that's going to be proposed by an engineer and then dropped. This is what we're going to do. We could pass it around. I'll continue to have dialogue with the neighbors, and I have no problem giving a draft to them and getting their comments.
Okay, no, perfect. That's exactly what I was hoping, is that this continues to move forward with this committee and the public's just input throughout the process.
Yep.
Perfect. Thank you. Are there any other comments or questions from the committee? So now, because we're on the Spain Street, West Spain from 1st to 5th, I think now I would like to invite public comment on this issue if we could. This way we kind of have it all circulating around. So should I reread the public comment? No, okay. We'll open up to public comment for Spain Street, and just please keep your comments limited to 3 minutes.
Armando Zimmerman, I would live on West Spain Street. I don't want to preclude anybody that wants to talk, but I really need a little bit more than 3 minutes, because if I'm speaking mostly for our entire group, maybe you can give me a little latitude on that. I don't know if you will or not.
I want to keep this process moving along, so I'd appreciate if we keep it to 3 minutes, and if anybody else would like to come up and speak. I'm just, we have a lot of items on the agenda, and I'd like to keep it at 3 minutes for right now.
My experience is in a neighborhood situation, as with ours, there was generally a couple of leads on this who seemed to have the ability to be the best spokesman for it. And it seems to me if Mr. Zimmerman is the guy who's doing it, and his neighborhood is all for it, then, as we did with Mr. Fitzgerald in our group, let Mr. Zimmerman be the lead dog, in my opinion.
Is there anybody else planning on coming up to make public comment about Spain Street?
Maybe a fair statement would be if I don't cover what you feel is important, then you could have three minutes. I don't know if that's a fair thing. Thank you for that suggestion, but it's your decision.
Well, let's before we move forward, because your 3 minutes had already started, so we're going to restart. But we can, thank you. We can. We'll go for the 3 minutes, and then we'll adjust as necessary.
Okay, thank you. Anyway, Armando Zimmerman, West Spain Street. Thank you for hearing this. I sat in your place for a while, so I know it's not an easy task. So I want to start by thanking Mr. Berger for kind of basically giving an overlook of our first traffic safety hazard reporting form, which went in I believe it was May of 2022. Now, I also want to make sure that the committee has our follow-up, which came about a year later in 2023. It might have been in May also. I just want to make sure you have it because it was not included in the agenda. Do they
It's
have
the
it?
paper that I
Yeah.
handed you guys this
Okay,
Yeah.
so what I want to do is just clarify that what Mr. Berger read off was basically a menu that we came up with because that was our first go at putting things on paper. And so it didn't mean, if you see in one place we go like any one of these or a combination of is what we were trying to get at. And just starting there, the three attachments that we put in to begin with, one was a traffic volume, just volume, not speed, that was done by a consultant for the city. I think they were called W-Trans. You'll have it there as an attachment. And you'll see that that was done in September of 2017, before COVID, et cetera. You might notice, it's hard to read, I couldn't get a better copy. It was a 24-hour study volume. It was counting cars, all vehicles, by the way, I believe, at the time, not just cars, trucks, buses, motorcycles, whatever, and going in both directions. And if you notice that the total for a 24-hour period was over 9,000 vehicle trips of some sort. And if I'm not reading it correctly, you can correct me. Anyone can correct me. What I found really interesting is that the vehicle trips going either direction, west to east or east to west, were very, very, very close. The numbers were very, very close. And so, in doing research for
Mr. Zimmerman, I just got to interrupt you.
Yeah.
The 3 minutes are up. We'll go. We'll continue, but we do need to be concise with this. So we will continue. We'll give you another 3 minutes. I understand you have a lot to present, and you're the expert on this one. But we got to make sure that we're moving along.
Well,
here.
anyway, thank you. Those figures really are consistent with information that the Climate Action Committee has come up with in relation to updating the city's general plan, which we've just started as a city, and where they've gotten some information from 2020 that said that basically in and around the area, mostly Sonoma, but it could be into the Springs or whatever, 66,000 daily trips, vehicle trips of some sort, and most of those trips were 4 miles or 4.5 miles or less. And so what that tells me is when you see the 2017 and the volume, I mean, it's astounding to me, and I live there, but you know, over 9,000 trips. And you look at these other figures, we've got a lot of people and a lot of cars outside the city that either come to the city or go through the city. And so that's something to consider in terms of looking at how we try to redesign Spain Street or any other street, Napa East or whatever, that you see a lot more traffic than probably anyone would imagine. So I'm just going to put that in there. I also want to say that I believe, Mr. Brennan's comments, I think that what we're proposing and what some of your comments say is that we should get in line with the updating of the city's general plan, because when you look at the circulation element, you look at the greenhouse gases, tailpipe emissions, noise. There's a noise element that needs to be upgraded. There's just so much that we can bring together. Okay, so that's just another comment. Now, there's a question about in the general plan now, and I think they're going to leave it in there. It points out that vehicle traffic is 66% of our greenhouse gases. Okay, and that's not mine. That's from the. So when you look at that, then you look at okay. It also talks in that general plan that commercial vehicles cause a problem on streets like Spain Street, and the signs that start at the plaza and go all the way to Highway 12 are largely ignored. I don't know if I'm stepping on anybody's toes, but they're ignored by drivers, In fact, there was a green leaf truck that used to park just recently, park across the street in the morning, and leave his truck idling with the reefer idling and everything else, and I'm going like, what's going on? So eventually, I went and knocked, and I said, hey, I see you park here, whatever, and he had popped up from the seat. He says, yeah, I'm resting, I'm waiting for my next whatever. And then he says to me, I told him, well, we have an idling ordinance, we're trying to cut down on greenhouse gases. He apologized. He said, if I park here now, I'm going to shut my motor off. And I said, thank you very much. And then he said, by the way, I know that I'm not supposed to park here because I've seen the signs. I didn't bring them up. He brought them up. I've seen the, commercial vehicle signs. Okay, so anyway.
Mr. Zimmerman, we've gone another. We're up to 7 minutes now. I can give you 3 more minutes, and then we have to move forward. Thank you.
Okay, so basically, I think that the general plan points out commercial vehicles. The chair mentioned buses, etc. Everybody has to do pre-planning, whether it's fire, police, and whatever. When I was a volunteer fireman in Glen Ellen, we did pre-planning because we knew we couldn't go everywhere with certain vehicles, et cetera, et cetera. So I know commercial vehicles, it would take some training and some public education and maybe even some contact with a previous police chief contacted certain tour bus companies and said, hey, by the way, the best way into Sonoma these are the best ways. And he was trying to get those big tour buses and the smaller tour buses because the Mission Inn sends the small ones every day. So I just wanted to point that out. The roundabout on Arnold Drive and Agua Caliente, they call it a roundabout, but it's a single circle. When Highway 12 was closed recently because of bridge repairs, and cars were all routed onto Arnold Drive, the only place that wasn't backed up was at that roundabout. When you went down to into Glen Ellen and Madrone Road or whatever, totally backed up. But that roundabout wasn't. So that told me that the worries that people had before that went in maybe should have been resolved along the way. When you approach the roundabout on Arnold Drive, you go from the school district, 25 miles, then you go up to 35, then you go up to 45. But before you get to the roundabout, it tells you to slow down to 25. So I would assume in the city, you would say, we're already at 25, maybe you're asking people to slow down to 20 or 15. But they continue to move. That's the main thing. There are a couple of other things. Let's see. Thank you for giving me a little more time. I appreciate that. If you actually want to see some really small traffic circles, there are 2 in Santa Rosa. And I believe I gave Mr. Berger the addresses of those. They're in residential neighborhoods, and I've talked to a few of the people that live there, and they were glad to have them. So but anyway, okay, I'll be quiet, and maybe that'll give some of the other people a moment.
Hi, good evening, committee members. I'm Andy Stubbs. I live in West Spain Street also. And I just wanted to express my appreciation to the committee and to the council for considering these traffic mitigation measures. We've lived there for a long time, and we've seen a lot of real dangerous situations. In addition to our neighbor being hit and his dog killed, my 12-year-old daughter also was crossing at that intersection, and it was a near miss with an accident with her, and we had some witnesses see that too. So I thank you for considering these mitigation measures.
Thank you.
My name is Sandra Zimmerman. I'm Armando's wife. We live in the same house on West Spain Street. I'm a quieter one. I would just want to thank you for considering this. I really appreciate that even though there was some mix-up, apparently Mike didn't get initially the last update that we sent, we sent it in May, but apparently he didn't get it immediately. But I want to thank you for considering that. I have several friends who thought they wanted to live on Spain Street. One who actually bought a house and lived on Spain Street and loved everything about the location except the traffic. I have another friend who had planned to live on Spain Street, stayed with us for a while, and decided, no, she did buy in town, but not on Spain Street. And I also want to add that I am shocked to hear that the traffic is an average of 26 miles per hour on Spain Street. I've only seen anybody going that slow. Sometimes they'll slow down for when you have the flashing light up, which thank you very much for that too. But the survey that was done one of the days, it was March 17th, St. Patrick's Day. And you know, Spain Street gets backed up for everything that's happening near the plaza and around the plaza. And I doubt that the cars were going more than 2 miles an hour for hours. And so that's got to average into whatever the other speed was. Anyway, I know this has been a long process for you. And I just want to tell you that it will be a project well done and appreciated by not just people that live on Spain Street, but all of the people who cross there. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
My name is Kavanaugh Koch. I live at 373 Spain Street. Spain Street has very fast traffic. So many people come off Napa Street and then zip over to Spain Street as a through street to get where they're going. And I'm also surprised that the average speed was 25.1 or something for a certain amount of time, because it seems like people are going 40, 45 miles an hour. That and the loud mufflers stand out. So whatever we could do to slow down the traffic in both directions. I also had to go around that 75-foot long bus or whatever it was. It seems like commercial big delivery trucks, big commercial lumber trucks or whatever, are they not allowed on Spain Street, or are they not allowed and just don't obey the prohibition? Is that it? Because I see them all the time. So I guess there's just not enough manpower to keep them off the street, I guess. But whatever we could do, including a traffic circle, would be appreciated by the property owners. Thank you.
Okay, are there anything online?
There are no hands raised on Zoom.
All right. Looks like the public comment for Spain Street, looks like we're all done here, and I think we can move on to the next item, which would be, well, Director Berger, I'll let you move on.
And you could just ask the committee if there's any further discussion based on all the comments that they heard.
Yeah. Sorry about that. From the committee, is there further discussion regarding? Okay. Yeah, no further discussion. We can move forward.
All right. The next item that I wanted to talk to you about tonight was received by us on 8/2/23, and that would be Newcomb and First Street West.
Not the 622.
Oh, 6/22/23. I skipped one. 7th Street West. Thanks, Cathy. This was brought forward to us. 7th Street West. This is a cut through between Napa Street and Studley and or Curtin. And so what the gist of this shortcut and the traffic safety, the person that turned this in, they're using it as a cut through. And we're talking about tractor trailers, commercial trucks. There should be a sign that says no commercial vehicles on surface streets in the city. These signs are already posted on the east side, on MacArthur and 8th Street East. Vehicles on this apparent shortcut seldom stop at the stop signs on Studley or Oregon and drive at high speeds through the neighborhood. They also talk about sideshows and cars driving too fast in general. So I treat this is similar to Spain Street, but on a much smaller scale. The stop signs there aren't being they're not being abided by, and Public Works hasn't spent a lot of time looking at this and trying to figure out what if the best traffic calming measures that could be installed at this location. And we will be doing that, and we could come up with a few different items to bring back to the committee for discussion, and that will probably be at the next meeting. Yeah, and the Spain Street issue that was brought forward, we've had time to look at that one. The rest of these, we haven't had as much time. Now, 5th Street West, the next one I'm going to talk about and I'm not jumping ahead, but 5th Street West, Spain to Verano, that one there is very similar to Napa Street at 5th and Spain Street. We have a bike trail crossing. We also have a plan to put lighted pedestrian crossing in there, the RRFB. And so that'll be one of the mitigation measures that's already planned. But on this one, we have to look into which traffic measures could be recommended. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to the committee.
I would say that I think I could safely say that you and the Public Works Department have a lot of work and a lot of different projects to work on. So when you are able to report back to us, greatly appreciate it.
So you did a lot of this kind of work in Napa, right? Because it's now the stuff's really coming to fruition with the roundabouts, and I know the downtown has really implemented some really significant walkability elements to it with the river and so on. How much can we hope to just capitalize on the success that it appears to me that they've had in Napa?
So one of the items that Napa has done since I left, and I was in engineering for 3 years at Napa before being the ops manager for 4 years. And in operations, we took care of all of the signs and striping, electrical, paving, concrete, facilities, and fleet. And so this fell right into my category for things that I would have my crew do. Small stuff, similar to what I'm doing here. Now, in Napa, okay, roundabouts, that's right off the state highway. We're not going to be putting roundabouts in the city of Sonoma. We'll examine traffic circles and look at their functionality, and hopefully we can put one in that's on a temporary basis. Now, RRFBs, we had a full program over there for putting those in. We probably averaged, we put them in with our own forces. We had 2 different crews that worked on them, electrical and our striping crew. We put probably 7 or 8 of those in a year, maybe 5 or 6. And what City of Napa has done recently since I left is I haven't had time to talk to our traffic engineer about this. We had briefly talked about it, but there is a campaign where you can drop the lowered speed limit below 25 miles an hour now. And what I have mentioned to the city manager as a further topic for us to discuss, and primarily coming into as Mr. Zimmerman brought up tonight, the general plan. Because what I think Sonoma could benefit from establishing is a downtown zone. Right. And in that downtown zone, like what Napa's got right now, they've dropped the speed. It says downtown above the 20 mile an hour speed limit sign. Well, we haven't had 20 mile an hour speed limit signs typically in California as long as I can remember. But what this new law is allowing is for municipalities to lower speeds in specific zones. And so if we could come up with, through the general plan, certain criteria that we have the flexibility of doing, like lowering speeds to 20 miles an hour within 2 blocks of the square, this is something that I would totally promote. And like I said, this has happened since I left, and so I'm a little bit behind the curve, but I know that there was a state law that allowed this to happen, and I just haven't had time to research that. And so I am going to be looking into it. It would be nice to have a downtown district, and then commensurate with that, lowering the speed limits in those areas, potentially being able to do other significant traffic calming measures, because as people get closer and closer to the plaza, we want them to go slower and slower, just because there's more people, there's more cars, there's more distractions, etc. So.
I think this kind of goes a little bit back to the Spain discussion, but I think it'd be good to, gather some information regarding the traffic circles and, the specifics of what it entails and the success that other municipalities have had or have not. And I think that'd be good for us as a committee to be able to receive some of that information, because I think, potentially that could be a solution for the 7th West as well. I live generally in the area, not within 500 feet, not a conflict. But I've definitely observed that. And, I think, like I talked about at the last meeting, I think, maybe if we could increase enforcement a little bit, that may do some, but folks are definitely, when Napa Street backs up, folks are taking 7th down to Oregon and Curtin to be able to scoot around that stuff. So, and in doing so, definitely don't stop at those stop signs very frequently. But if a, traffic circle is some way to keep things moving and, who knows? I don't know if that's an option or if there's any benefit of doing that.
Yeah, and Public Works will be feeding the committee more information for them to take a look at this and gather facts and think about it. And we'll be bringing this up at future meetings. One of the things we haven't done is had a chance to talk at our traffic engineering safety meetings with PD, fire, the traffic engineer, myself. I haven't had the chance to run any of this by any of the other departments, primarily police and fire. I think that, if they can get around it at a reasonable rate of speed, especially if it's in a residential, quote unquote, area, I think that they would be more open to it, because the problems that I've heard them state are about primary response routes and full obstructions in the roadway, things like that. And so if you just had to kind of slow down a little bit and, decrease response time by just a couple of seconds, that would be, a benefit. Yeah, but as we get more information on these, I'll definitely be passing it along to the committee.
Thank you.
All right. Appears there are no further comments from the committee on this, and so I would open up to public comment regarding this issue, 7th Street West. Is there anybody here for public comment on 7th Street West?
There are no hands raised on Zoom.
Okay. All right. Just one more for the committee. Any further discussion on the item at this time? All right. I think we can move on to the next one, 5th Street West.
Excellent. Okay, so 5th Street West, Spain Street to Verano. This is very typical of the high-traveled problem streets that we have in town. It's one of the arterials. It connects, it's the way to bypass Highway 12 and go up 5th and Verano Avenue. The folks that turned this in, the traffic hazard reporting form, they talked about putting in potentially speed humps or speed bumps. And then they're alarmed about the consequences of the excessive speed. Residents' driveways along Fifth Street West often face difficulties when slowing down or stopping to turn into their driveways. Having problems with impatient drivers. And then also, they're specifically talking about near the Montini Preserve, the cow pasture there at the 90-degree turn where Fifth turns into Verano, where speeding vehicles make pedestrians, especially children, exceptionally vulnerable to accidents. The road narrows at this point, lacking crosswalks and sidewalks adjacent to the pasture. Many pedestrians cross from the west side of the street to the east side to get closer to the cows, et cetera, et cetera. So here again, the current plans by the city for this street are to put in a RRFB crossing at the bike trail. That's going to replace the in-ground lighted crossing that's currently there. That'll make that much safer. It's mid section of this entire stretch, and so we might get a little bit of bang for our buck in traffic calming. Here again, what I'm developing or have developed in Public Works by working on Napa near Fifth Street is a toolbox of all the different traffic calming measures that we can implement easily. And that includes everything that we have on Fifth Street and Napa Street right now, except for the bulb outs, which were put in pre-2008. Those traffic calming measures are not hard to put in. Our own crews can put them in. Now, if you're talking about lining Spain Street, that's a different story. That's going to take the crew probably 3 weeks to do the striping work out there because we just don't have the numbers and the production. We do burn down, it's expensive, and we like doing it in short stretches without having to get production line lanes. So we could get some traffic calming measures done on Fifth Street. I have to spend some time on this, but things that come to mind are very similar to what we did on Napa Street on the east side of town. Is there areas where we could put in a fog stripe? Is there areas that we could focus on that are problem areas where we could consider other options, like people making left-hand turns and how we put the buttons on Napa at Fifth to prohibit people from cutting the corner short? So there's a lot of different options for Fifth Street, and this one here, we don't have. One of the first things I'm going to do is go out there and do a couple speed surveys for each direction, and then we'll have a baseline, and we'll do it at strategic points, and then we can see the effectiveness and measure the effectiveness of our traffic calming measures.
Okay. Is there any comment or discussion from committee members?
I just like the idea of a toolbox. I think that's arrows in the quiver. There are a lot of, and what I've learned on my own is it's obvious that no one, except a wall, is going to stop people from driving through a neighborhood. Nothing's going to make people 100% of the time obey the traffic laws, and there's always going to be that challenge. But the more arrows that you have with the department to implement, I think the better off we will be overall. And I think the more we implement them throughout and see how successful those are, but it's going to be even better for us.
And just getting back to one of your other points that you brought up earlier, that what could I bring from Napa? And one of the things that I didn't bring from there, but I live in Napa, and they came up with these new battery-powered radar signs that flash your speed. And the police department actually bought them and put them up. And they're only about, they're probably about this big, and they're probably bigger than they look when you're driving by. But these are easy to install on telephone poles, street signs, street lights, and you can put them in very strategic spots. And this is something I'm going to be talking to Chief Cutting about installing. And I had a conversation with him about them as soon as I heard that PD were the ones that bought them in Napa. Because I called my electrician buddies up over there, and they said, oh, no, we're not doing those. That's PD. And they only work for about 7 days, and then the battery dies. But you go out, and they collect all the data about how fast the cars are going And like I said, you could put them in strategic spots and then you just bring them back to the office, charge them up, and you can take them out, put them in another spot. So we are going to be looking into getting a couple of those, and we could be putting those on Spain Street tomorrow if we had them. Yeah, and we could put them anywhere around town that we want to. And like I said, I'll be doing it in conjunction with PD. And so there's another thing here again, another arrow in the quiver.
Was this helping PD, do you know, with basically getting a snapshot for enforcement data and where to deploy, the best place to deploy? And I know this is more of a question for Chief Cutting or the Chief of Napa Police, but do you think that was that kind of the goal?
I do not, I have not asked that question, and I know Jennifer Gonzalez, I could ask her and find out what sort of data PD's collecting from that and what the plan was. Some big picture stuff, big picture data. Yeah. I could follow up on that.
Yeah, that'd be great.
I just wanted to make one quick comment, slightly unrelated to this, but we're kind of talking about enforcement and things. Just wanted to thank Chief Cutting and Sonoma PD for the outreach on social media. Definitely noticed they made a few posts regarding hearing the community's concerns regarding the traffic and speed and stop signs and things like that in different locations throughout the city. So, and talking about trying to get enforcement going on those locations. So thank you to them for making that known and getting that out to the public.
I'll piggyback off of that. I was just thinking about it. There is something to be said for enforcement and just visual enforcement. You don't even have to pull people over. And I know police staffing. Believe me, I know it very well. I've been a cop for 10 years, and even driving through town, if I see a cop, there's something to be said about a cop being sitting on a street corner. There are certain, I drive up Highway 101 every day. I see CHP, it makes me think twice. So, to the police department, thank you. And, but we do know that staffing is a challenge, and there's a lot of challenges for police. I'm all too familiar with them.
And even though staffing is a challenge, one of the things I noticed recently is that they did step up enforcement on Fifth Street.
Yep.
Big time. I saw cars being pulled over, and I wouldn't be surprised if there was tickets being issued.
Yep.
Yeah.
I've been seeing it. I walk the girls to school, and I see them out on Fifth Street. It makes me very happy. Anyway, sorry. Any further discussion from the committee? No further discussion. I will open this one up to public comment.
Hi, I'm Charlotte Ruffner. I live at 53 Fifth Street West. I've also lived right next door at 61 Fifth Street West. And I'm the person who started the petition and so on. I went door to door. So many people want some mitigation measures. The big problem is between where the bike path is on Fifth Street all the way to Verano. It's a long stretch with not one stop sign, with not one crosswalk. From that one stretch, it's a perfect shortcut. And when they're doing work on the highway, everyone used it. The worst part of the day is the morning, and the second worst part is the afternoon when people are going home from work. These are people who live somewhere else and need to get into town. And they think nothing of going 40, 45 down the street. And on weekends at night, people use it to speed, really speed, like drag racing. And it's really annoying. I live right on the street. You can hear it. It is so loud. It sounds like we live next to a freeway. When I drive down the street, I deliberately go 25 because that's the speed limit. I've never seen it enforced, but maybe I'm not out there, watching like a hawk. Maybe it's getting enforced lately, but I've lived there for 3, 4 years, 5 years now. And I've seen 3 accidents. When I did the door-to-door, everyone told me they had seen an accident, especially up near the Montini cow pasture. One person said that several parked cars were hit along the street. So I don't know what can be done. This toolbox idea of using any mitigation measures is great. I really, really want this to stop. It's crazy. I go 25. I have my husband and we both go 25, and we get flipped off. We get honked at. It's just unbelievable. I have to turn left into my driveway, and because the road narrows, people think, oh, I'll just go around her. But then right where I need to stop, it starts to narrow, and then people start to go around me, and they realize that there's no road anymore because it's very narrow where the cow pasture is. And so I get honked at. Sometimes I'm practically rear-ended. It hasn't happened. But also I have problems backing out of my driveway. And I have to wait for, like, if I'm trying to get out at 9 in the morning or 8:30, I have to wait several minutes for the traffic to die down before I can get my car out. So anyway, please, please do something to stop this. Thank you.
Mrs. Ruffner, if I could, just a question. Anecdotally, you live right there, and I'm hoping this could give us a little more guidance, because there's data that we can always point to, but I always like to, if you live there, what do you see? Do you see people crossing from, would be the west side of 5th Street over to the cow pasture? Is there a lot of pedestrian traffic crossing between like Verano and...
Yes.
Okay.
So what happens is there's a crosswalk. There are crosswalks on both sides of the street, east and west, and the crosswalk stops right where the cow pasture begins, and so
Crosswalk, ma'am, or sidewalk?
the sidewalk. I'm
Yeah,
sorry,
okay,
the sidewalk. There are no crosswalks. I'm sorry, I've got my terms all mixed up.
Okay.
Yeah, but I do see people crossing, and they cross diagonally from both sides. And it's also a frequent place for bicycles. And just the other day, my husband and I started noticing a whole bunch of turkey vultures in front of the house. And it turns out there was a dead cat in the road right in front of our house. So we had to bury the cat. People are going really fast. So anyway, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. I'm Stephanie Ozer. I live right next door to these lovely people. It's actually on Mariano Drive, which is the street just south of Verano. So it's the last street you can turn off. So our entrance is on Mariano, but our yard and our bedroom windows face 5th Street West. So we're on the corner there. Anecdotally, we've lived there for almost 5 years. And personally, just to echo what Charlotte was saying, whenever I try to turn, because I'm the very last street, and people don't even think about it, they just see Verano, it's many times I feel like I'm going to get rear-ended. It's happened maybe a half a dozen times in the last year and a half. Also, I've had people flip me off. I always go 25, and I've had people trying to turn. I sometimes feel like, oh my God, I'm crawling when I'm going 25 because nobody is going 25. I've been guilty of it myself before I lived on 5th Street, so I confess. But there's also a lot of pedestrian traffic right at the corner of 5th and Spain. I'm sure you know, because there's an autistic housing community right there. And those residents are learning traffic and skills, pedestrian skills. And they come out, there's one entrance on 5th Street West, and there's one entrance on Spain Street. And they come out to 5th Street West, and they often go to the corner and try to cross. That's always scares me. But then they walk to the bike path thing, and sometimes they cross. Anyway, it just worries me. Full disclosure, my daughter lives there, and so I'm always a little concerned when she walks to our house. She really knows her safety stuff, but I just don't want anything to happen to any of the residents there. There are going to be 20, so that's an additional concern. The noise, we hear like motorcycles. We have tour buses all the time that I don't think commercial vehicles are supposed to use it as pass-through, but it is the pass-through. So I want to thank you all for looking at mitigation, because it's that speedway from, towards Verano that people rev up their cars and they don't want to stop. So thank you so much for all of your work and consideration.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm David Schoenbach. I live in the same house on Mariano and 5th Street West. Three things I want to mention. One is cut-through, one is sideshow, and the third one is walkability. It seems to me that many people use 5th Street West as a way to cut through from, whether they're in the Springs or on Arnold Drive or wherever they're coming from the highway, coming through either to get to town or to get to 5th Street West toward Napa Road. So the amount of traffic for a residential street is quite heavy, and the speed also is quite fast. So that's one. The second item, sideshow, as others have mentioned, after 9 o'clock, and usually it doesn't go past 1 o'clock, there are many people who use this quiet, long stretch as a way to just show off whatever they got. And speeds at that time of day get very fast, that time of night get very fast, particularly on the weekends, but we hear it during the week as well. The third thing is walkability. I have a dream here, and it's probably part of, and I would ask that you consider it in any influence you have on longer range planning. The bike path, Mr. Brennan, you talked about walkability. You also talked about the only way to stop it is to build a wall. I would love to see a tree-lined little extension across 5th Street West to just stop it all. Thanks.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Ben Ruffner. I live on 5th Street West, 53, and I've lived there for about 5 years. In the mornings during rush hour and in the evenings during rush hour, it goes from already quite a bit of traffic to pretty much a highway. And there are quite a few families with young children along the street, on the cross streets that cross 5th Street. And what occurs to me is that both going from Napa to Verano and the opposite way is there's a stop sign on both ends. People start moving and they just increase their speed all the way up. When they get to the crosswalk, they'll generally let their foot off the gas a little bit, but just to look both ways. And if nobody's coming, they just speed on through. So you really have a long distance without any reason to completely stop your car or really slow down your car. Anyway, I see tremendous numbers of people walking their dogs, or nannies pushing babies, young families pushing babies in baby carts, crossing the street there. I know it's just a matter of time before somebody gets hit. Thank you for listening to me.
Thank you. Is there any further public comment on this? Anything online?
One more thing.
Go ahead.
Well, I'll
Yeah.
leave it at. In my application, I put my husband and I are willing to donate $5,000 towards speed humps on 5th Street West. Just so you know.
Thank you.
That is certified. It was in the application. And while we're not looking for that, I'm not saying we wouldn't take it at some time, but we're not currently looking for things like that. And, but there is a form that you can fill out. It will be approved by council to accept a donation. Just sitting here thinking about it, the more I think about those little signs that I talked about tonight, I'm definitely going to be talking to the police department find out what kind they are, how much they are, and what sort of data it records, because I want to make sure that we're getting, that it's all recordable data. Because if it's recordable data, it's providing it's a double benefit. One is that we're going to be able to let people know the speeds that they're going. And then secondly, we're going to be recording that like we're out there doing a speed survey. So it's twofold. I really like them, and I'm going to look into buying a couple of them, and this would be the spot to put them. Yeah. And if not, we're going to get out there and do a speed survey. And then if the speed survey comes back, if for some reason these things aren't easy to get, what I would look into doing is putting a radar speed sign out there, like what we have on Napa Street on the east side of town. Yeah, and I would think primarily for vehicles going northbound after the bike trail.
Yes.
Like where
because people think it opens up.
Yeah.
And that's.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we will start looking into this as a priority location.
Sorry, you may have said this. Did you get a cost from Napa?
No.
Okay. All right.
No, I don't think they're going to be
But they
outlandishly expensive.
Yeah, they seemed. You made them sound pretty inexpensive.
I think they're going to be affordable.
Yeah, as far as traffic calming measures go, or studies go. Is there any other? Is there further public comment on this? And yes.
I just want to make a comment regarding Fifth Street West and Spain Street. I notice that if you're headed west on Spain Street, when you get to Fifth Street, there's a long red curb that goes from the corner, the cutout, for the pedestrian walk. Long red curb that basically prohibits parking from that red curb all the way to the corner, something like Ms. Berger was describing. But and I have done it myself. I sometimes use it as a right-hand turn lane, and I assume that's illegal. But anyway, the point is, I was wondering, since people do use it, especially if you're going straight, if people kind of stay to the center line, there is room. And I'm just wondering if putting in would it be appropriate to put in a right-hand turn lane at that point to maybe keep the backup less and make the intersection a little more, whatever. So I don't know. I don't want to step on any Fifth Street people toes, but that's just a comment. Thank you.
Thank you.
30 seconds more.
Okay, 30 seconds, and then we're going to move on to the next.
Yes, if you're collecting data northbound, I'd encourage you to collect data southbound. There's a slight slope down, and it seems to encourage people to go fast. And also collect it well north of the crosswalk, because people do slow down or at least let their foot off the gas, as Ben said. Thanks.
Thank you. Do we have any further discussion from the committee on Fifth Street from Spain to Verano?
Yeah, I have a couple questions and comment. Mike, just to be clear, I've been up that street. Both there are no, but I don't recall, there are no stop signs from Spain, from West Spain on Fifth Street West up to Verano, and then.
That's correct.
And then Verano.
On Fifth Street West, there are no stop signs.
Okay, and then you hit that corner, you go left, you just kind of go around, you're on Verano then, and there's no stop signs to Napa, to the intersection? There are two stop signs there, okay. On Verano.
There's two stop signs on Verano. I believe it's two, between Fifth Street and McDonald's.
All right, but there's nothing on Fifth Street.
Correct.
Well,
No, there's a stop sign
at the
Fifth
end of
Street.
Fifth Street.
If
There-
Fifth and Verano, where it's just it's basically a
Yeah,
right
the
angle,
other-
those are stop signs.
Right, okay, but that's.
But then when you start heading to McDonald's, there's two. There's one on Robinson and then one.
Yeah, they're
Taco
closer
Bell.
to Highway 12.
Right.
But there are
So
no
I mean,
stop
yeah.
signs between Verano and Spain
Yeah.
Street on Fifth.
Okay.
There's just the bike trail crossing.
Right,
Yeah.
and then, so, as far as, has there been a discussion about stop signs on Fifth Street West? The other thing I was thinking, I mean, you were talking earlier about 20-mile-an-hour speed limits. I mean, is that considered a residential neighborhood? Yes. I mean, can there be like, I mean, do you put, I've seen places where they put signs up residential neighborhood and you can drop the speed limit. And then as far as the other thing, I just wanted to make the comment as far as the side shows. I mean, I hear all that and I hear the noise and all that. That's enforcement, I think. I don't know, the only other way around, that's the only way to solve that is just enforcement. I mean, there's speed bumps, nothing is really gonna, I think, solve that. I mean, it would solve it, but I don't know, I don't think they want to go that direction.
Yeah, and just, this street is not a residential street. The street is collector arterial.
Oh,
Yeah, and so, if you look in our general plan document, this street is collector.
okay.
Yeah, and so it's not a residential street, and it would be treated differently if we were implementing traffic control measures. However, just like Napa Street, it's a collector. Yeah, and so we can put a lot of things out there, but it's more than likely a primary emergency response route.
Yeah,
And so when you start talking about stop signs, speed table, things like that,
well, that
it generates a lot of conversation, let's just say.
yeah, I understand
Yeah.
that. All right, I have nothing further.
So I think this is a reflection of what's going on with our entire city, just in terms of traffic. And I, people on Second Street East wound up lobbying this committee years ago for a stop sign, ill-advised, in my opinion, on Patton Street. And it's ill-advised because people don't stop, and it's there, and people anticipate it to be there. And it's been my contention, Director Berger and I, we've had this conversation before, the city's obligated by the state to continue to build out internally within the community, and builders get more bang for their buck on smaller parcels. So if you take Bockley Court, for example, that's 20 houses. DeNova's got 15 going in on the corner of Fifth Street West and Andrew, and that's just 2 or 3 more cars per house that are going in there. And what the city hasn't done, and I think we're in a position to be able to take care of, or at least motivate the city, is to focus also on the effect of traffic on our lives and what's going on here. And we have the challenge that we have to be aware of public services, emergency services and so on, that need to be able to get their jobs done for us. And at the same time, we want to be able to walk our dogs. We want to be able to walk with our kids to school. We want to be able to ride our bikes across Fifth Street West without fear of getting clipped. And I think it's, in my opinion, as a civilian, it's this array of traffic calming devices that we can implement. The other thing that I know, Director Berger, you haven't talked about, and I don't know that it's allowed in California, and that's the unique painting that can occur on streets that give a visual for making the street seem more narrow, and as a result, calming traffic. And I know that's more of a European thing and a Japanese thing, but those are also ways, I think, that we can apply, tools that we can apply to calm traffic. That's it.
Yeah, and just expanding on that a little bit, the circulation element of the general plan, which the city's redoing their general plan for the first time in a while. It's due, it's a little overdue if I'm not mistaken. Having public comment regarding the circulation element of the general plan, which I think it will address things like pedestrian safety, quality of life goes right in there, which is what the committee members talking about. And in that circulation element of the general plan, what we're going to try doing is look at our collectors arterials. Sonoma's kind of locked in to where we are. There's not a whole lot of places where you could build a bypass to get people from the plaza without going up Spain or Napa or 5th and 5th. And however, if we're continuing to look at bicycle routes and continuity on our bicycle paths, hopefully that gets more people out of their cars on a bicycle and makes biking in the city safer. That should also be discussed in the circulation element of the general plan. And we do have a pedestrian and bicycle plan it's time for that to get updated. So there's different things that we can do to make the city more user-friendly to bicycles, walkers, and hopefully get more people out of their cars and make the roadways safer.
Yeah, I think I just want to add to that. I think that's what makes this city unique is we don't have a freeway running through it. We don't have Highway 29. We don't have Highway 101. And we're an island essentially. And I love that aspect about Sonoma. But the flip side of that is we're a city that's outgrowing itself, and it's hard for the city to keep up because so many people are coming here and moving here, and people who are from here are raising their families here, and we're getting larger, and it's hard to keep that in place. So I just wanted to basically point out that you know, with the uniqueness of our city comes these challenges. Because I love that we don't have a freeway running through here, but this is also the consequence of it as well. Go ahead.
Just talking about 5th Street West a little bit. Did I understand correctly when you introed some of this that the lighting at the bike path in 5th is non-op currently?
If it isn't non-op, it will be soon. Those things aren't being maintained by us now. Two of the four, I think 3 of the 4 were not working before Caltrans ripped out 2 on Broadway with the paving project. I don't believe that the one on 2nd Street close to Whole Foods is working. And the one on the bike trail, I haven't seen it working lately going through there, but I can't confirm that it's not working. But it won't be soon because these things are high maintenance and they're really a pain to do the maintenance on.
Okay. Just for what it's worth, my opinion, I think when we talk about the RRFBs, that would be number 1 on my list if we're thinking that those lights either are not functioning or soon to be not functioning. You know, as the city, we're telling folks, hey, this is the bike path, this is where you go and walk. We're funneling folks to that location. I would think that we should do what we can to make that a safe crossing there.
That'll be noted and put in the file because what we were going to do is it was a toss up between the one on 2nd Street at the marketplace or Whole Foods and the one on the bike trail. So yeah, we'll seriously consider doing the one on the bike trail at 5th Street first as soon as we finish Broadway.
Okay, and then you know, the only other 2 things, just it'd be real interesting to get some of that information on the traffic circles just to see if there's any, you know, with it being a collector and whatnot on 5th, if there's any application of a traffic circle or if it, you know, makes sense. And then the other thing, you know, that I haven't thought about before is the lack of crosswalks on 5th. Obviously, we have the one at the bike path, but with the sidewalk ending just north of Montini there, you know, maybe some consideration to putting in a crosswalk at Montini or somewhere near there so that folks who no longer want to, you know, walk on the side of the road there by the what's been referred to as the Montini pasture and do cross, maybe they have that, you know, safe crosswalk there, somewhere in the area of Montini Way and 5th.
Yeah, and you know, I reflect on the fact that cars traveling at the cemetery are traveling much faster than cars at the bulb out crosswalks at 5th and Napa. Now, you bring up a good point there that I'm going to look into how that sidewalk ends, whether or not there's a handicap ramp there. And if there is I doubt there's a handicap ramp because if there's a handicap ramp, more than likely we'd have a crosswalk And from what I'm hearing, we don't have a crosswalk there. I'll confirm all this in the morning. But, you know, that I believe that sign in the middle of the road and the two bulb outs are part of the reason why people are really going slow. And so that's something that we could consider as a future traffic calming measure there. And I would promote that because I noticed a significant difference after we installed that sign in the middle of the road and those bumps for people turning left, because you only have to spill your coffee one time because the car in front of you slowed down, and you're going to remember that and go slowly through that intersection from that point forward. So we're going to look into doing some implementation measures on this section of roadway. Yeah.
On that note, because I think Mark and I are thinking along the same line, I'm not exactly sure where the sidewalk ends on the east side where the Montini Ranch is, where that is, but could you do a bulb out on the west side of the street, even if it's mid-block? The bulb outs traditionally seem like they're mostly at intersections. And I mean, unless I'm mistaken, but I would think that a bulb out, and I think you're right, full in saying that there's probably not a nice ending to that sidewalk. It probably just ends. Where if you could do a bulb out on each side, bulb out in the middle, that, I mean, it's not going to solve the problems, but it's going to be, I think to your point, it's going to be a step in the right direction.
Yeah, and you know, typically you see bulb outs at intersections because that's where the crosswalks are.
Exactly.
However,
having one mid-block
at 5th and Napa, we moved it. And we do, I believe on Napa Street, in between 5th and probably 2nd, there's another. And I can't remember if it's mid-block or not. And I could look into that, but I don't think there's any restrictions on that. And then also, I believe that the crosswalk or the sidewalk ends where the barbed wire fence starts and the green pasture starts. Yeah. So the sidewalk is going to end right there, but I don't see a restriction there on not being able to put physical traffic calming measure in. Yeah.
The one, we've got the bulb out right in front of our house. The detriment is simply that I can't park in front of my house. There's no parking. But I find it, it's made it just an interesting observation of Americana. Boy, people sure want to own that parking space right in front of their house. And it's funny how you think that their, legal description of their property includes all those parking spaces out there. But to me, I'm happy to give it up as long as we've got, there's plenty of places to park. Yeah, maybe it's another 25 feet for people coming to my house. That's fine. Corner 5th Street East and Napa Street East.
Well, I'm looking at the number of signatures on this petition from people in the 5th Street neighborhood. I think my guess is we'd be willing to make that sacrifice of one parking spot to move forward with something, to get something going. It's because it's not going to solve the problems, but I'm with you. I love the parking spot right in front of my house. I get irritated when people.
I got to tell you, so I officiate high school football, and I got to do the Napa Vintage game last Friday, a week ago, and we had to park way away from the stadium just because everybody was already there. One guy had all his trash cans and orange cones out in front of his house because, gosh darn it, no one was going to park in front of his house, and it just was pretty amusing. Anyway.
We got Mr. Zimmerman. I'm sorry. We need to move. We need to move on. We're going to move on here. We're hitting the 2-hour mark, and we still have a few items to cover. So.
And public comment was closed.
And public comment was closed already. That's right. So we're going to move on to the next. Unless there's anything else on this one, we're going to move forward with where were you on Newcomb and First. Just a report from Director Berger.
Yeah, and I have great news to report here. I'm going to combine items, the third to last item and the last item, which are in green on your log. You don't have to look these up. One of them was received on August 2nd, 2023. The second one was received on August 23rd, 2023. Both of these items are, as far as we're concerned, closed. And this is 1, 2, 3, item 4, and item 6. These were both turned in by the same person. And Both of them involve updating the crosswalks at these intersections. Public Works has looked into this. The crosswalks could use a refresh. And so what we're going to do is we're going to go out there and we're going to put continental crosswalks where the existing crosswalks currently are. Continentals are the ones that are perpendicular to all the newer ones that are going in, versus having two bars that are parallel to the direction that the pedestrians are walking. Continentals are the ones that have the railroad tie makeup and layout. And so as far as we're concerned, the complaint or the traffic hazard reporting form that was brought up for Newcomb and First, and the traffic hazard reporting form that was brought up for the intersection of 2nd Street West and Andrix, both of those are going to get updated and it's on our list. So if the committee wants to discuss those further, we can do that.
I like that you combine them and you're ready to close them. Well, first I have to ask if there might be somebody online. Is there any public comment on either of these two items?
No, none. There are no hands raised on Zoom.
Okay,
Nobody's
doesn't
there.
look like there's anybody approaching the podium, so I'll ask the committee if there's any further discussion on these items. Excellent. Okay, then, that being said, we have one left. We're going to move on to MacArthur Lane, 2nd Street East, East MacArthur, and Donner.
Yes, and this traffic hazard reporting form was received on 8/21/23, and it's not your standard speeding, pedestrian. This involves, and myself and the police department in Sonoma Valley Unified School District, the principal of both the high schools there, have all been working on this collaboratively, and the police department has been taking lead. Chief Cutting has spent a lot of time over the summer and at the start of school year working with the people in the neighborhood regarding parking on their streets as a result of high school football, high school activities, and high school in general on a Monday through Friday basis. Students parking in their front yards. If you are there on the weekends, you'll see that with soccer games and any event at the high school, these spots tend to fill up fairly quickly. And this is at the intersection of MacArthur and 2nd Street East, right there next to the creek. And then the court that goes, or the cul-de-sac road that goes into to the south off MacArthur into where there used to probably be a field, and then comes back in to MacArthur, approaching the high school's property. This is a real popular spot for people to park, and what these folks have talked about, the fact that, and we've been partnering with the high school on this, and my understanding is the sheriff's department and SVUSD have been putting in a lot of effort and working with the person that turned this in, and it's gotten better, but they still want us to look into it. They have still submitted the traffic complaint, and it could involve 3-hour parking, which would put it into the parking permit program, which this area is not designated for permit parking, and the police department is always trying to find ways to maximize their resources without taking on too much new work. And these parking programs do take time and effort to manage and then also go out and write the tickets. So with that, I have some help tonight from the sheriff's department, and Traffic Safety Deputy Mike Pierce is here, and I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to him because he's been working with Chief Cutting about some of the specifics that they've gone through over probably the last 4, 5, 6 months.
Good evening.
Thanks for hanging in. I know.
Yeah,
I'm
no,
sure you're
not a
working
problem.
long hours. Trust me, I get it.
It's all good. I'm happy to be here. I am the one of the traffic officers in town, newly appointed there. So some background: I've been in town for, I've been at the sheriff's office for a little over 2 years now. I came from another mid-sized municipality, did a lot of time there. Prior to coming to the sheriff's office, I worked in that PD's traffic unit for several years. So I do have some traffic background. I came out to Sonoma. I was working graveyards out here, so a little different. Not so much of the traffic issues on the graveyard shift. Some movement came around. I jumped onto the traffic team or the traffic spot here, and I've been doing that for a few months now. So I'm getting acclimated to some of the complaints, and this is one. We actually were out there today on a different issue, this exact spot, not so much for parking, but because of it, how close it is to the high school, and we get some high school parking there. We did have like a fight that occurred on that street that stemmed from some of the high school kids. So this complaint was brought to the PD's attention at the beginning of the school year. It was addressed through some directed patrols and citations. I think during the first couple weeks of school, there was close to over 20 citations issued. That seemed to calm the issue. And I think word spread pretty quick about just minding your P's and Q's in that neighborhood. It's a short street there, so there's not a lot of, my understanding is as vehicles were turning off of MacArthur onto this, into this residential neighborhood, they would, come in to the neighborhood a little hot and then park. High school kids probably running late to school and things like that. If they're anything like my own children, they're never on time. But so it was addressed with some written citations, some parking citations. Worked closely with the school. They changed some of their release times as far as, or their practices, I should say. They're no longer allowing kids to exit out of the east side of the campus during the lunch hour and after school. They're all forced to exit out of the Broadway side of school. So it's not super convenient to park there with those new rules in place. Although one caveat to that is with Creekside High, they typically release at noon, so they will park there because at noon they can release out of the backside, and this area is very close to that the Creekside campus on the school grounds there. So and then also on top of that too, it's a convenient area to park for a lot of the sporting events, as you guys know, with the proximity of the football fields and the sporting fields on the weekends. There is a lot of traffic generated and parking issues generated there because of the proximity to the sports fields and stuff. Am I missing anything, Mike? I think that's.
I think you pretty much covered it up. Yeah.
And I guess what I was briefed on today when we went out there is a lot of the neighbors were looking into this like a three-hour parking program in that neighborhood. So that's my understanding of it that I was briefed on to provide to you guys tonight.
When you did the initial those sites, you said you did those 20 sites. What were the sites for?
Parking the wrong way, everything. Parking against traffic, too far away from the curb. If they're blocking a egress/ingress ramp, there's some. If they're hanging over and blocking a driveway.
Red zone.
And then the red zones there.
Yeah, my concern is if primarily high school kids or whomever it is at least during the day is like if they learn how to park, then will be enforceable.
Yeah.
Because once they learn how to park, then we rely on the 3 hour. This would be the easiest one would be the 3 hour one, but for high school it'd be one thing, but for soccer games, sporting events, that 3 hours isn't going to do anything because that's about how long it takes, if not less. And I guess my next question would be, and you don't need to give exact, but what does Sonoma PD's daytime staffing kind of look like, numbers wise?
So there's two of us.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll have two here. I typically start at 5 a.m., so I'll work, depending on the work week, I'll either work from 5 a.m. to 4 p.m. or 5 a.m. to 5 p.m. And then my partner will come on at 7 a.m. So during the bulk of the day shift, there's two of us, supplemented by a sergeant, for the primary responsibility of all, law enforcement here in the city. We do have valley deputies, but that's staffed again by two officers for day shift. We do have one cover unit that comes on both here and in the valley, and those cars typically start at about 2 p.m.
Okay.
Yeah.
And just knowing full well is what staffing and enforcement you guys have. You have to patrol. You got to, you're looking at stop signs, and you guys have calls for service.
Yeah.
I don't want to say like parking is you have a lot on your plate is kind of what I'm saying during day watch probably.
It can be. Yeah.
It can be.
Yeah. While I am the traffic officer, it tends to be a secondary duty. I'd love it to be full time, but depending on our, as you know, calls for service and stuff, many calls require a two-officer response, so I'll have to break from what I'm doing to, cover my partner, things like that.
Well,
Hang on one second. What's that?
I will piggyback on 5th Street West. That is that's an absolute raceway.
Yeah.
As you guys probably know, but if I needed to go out and write a ticket right now, that's probably the one spot in the city.
It's duck pond. That's.
Yeah. So and speed, absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, and my other understanding is, as a traffic safety officer, if someone in my neighborhood decided to challenge a ticket that you wrote, you guys would have to go up to Santa Rosa, and so that takes you off, and now we're down to one person. Yeah. So that's a bummer. What's the situation, and I don't think it's going to help much knowing high school kids, but what's the situation with the high school's torn up that one parking lot area? Is that project close to being done to help? It's on the north side of the school.
That's the teacher's parking lot, I believe.
Okay.
Yeah, and I think that's taking quite a while. I think we're looking at the school year.
Yeah, at least when I was there.
Yeah, okay.
Once beyond parking enforcement, let's just say that you're traffic and you can be sitting right there. That'd be great because my parents live right there. What else? And I know you're here on behalf of the chief. What are kind of like the next items that we're looking at in terms of, like I said, once the kids learn how to park, we're kind of back to square one. Outside of people having their driveways blocked, then
I would agree. Yeah. I can understand the complaint, but as you know, with kids having sports, that's just a rotating thing on the weekend. So as one game gets over, new players and parents and families will arrive to take those spots. So while a 3-hour limit may help with some of the school parking, I think on the weekends it may not mitigate much. Just a soccer game there or a baseball game is typically less than 3 hours. So even a football, even a nighttime football game, you could park there and be in and out in less than 3 hours.
And the soccer games at Prestwood, they create almost more congestion because you have people coming and going and crossing and everything.
Yeah.
So even parking enforcement would be even more difficult.
So I have a question. So is there some reason why 3 hours, and why could it be less? I know that area really well, and I'm all for people using it as drop-off, but could there be a way to even just have it be a drop-off for sports and things like that and not have any?
And this would probably go to Muni Code. I got a feeling that when you're talking about permit parking, it would be written somewhere. I can't tell you the specific spot, but I got a feeling that 3 hours isn't random.
I see.
Yeah.
You work with the high school because you've been working closely with them. I like the one idea, the one bullet point about having a work-study program for students to man barriers and kind of direct traffic during the sporting events.
Right.
I mean, the only thing I can envision is, conflict, somebody getting pissed off because they're told by a student, but I don't know, just, has that been talked about or utilized, or?
I'm not familiar with that bullet point. Was that?
Oh, it just says here, it talks about, for home football game nights, this is just a suggestion. And this would be something I think you'd have to work with this high school with. But it's having a work study program. I don't know what high schools have as far as work study. To man barriers at 2nd Street East, at MacArthur Street East. Again, I don't know these areas, but I know obviously it's the sports areas. Just during the sporting events, to let people know that, I guess it says control access to residents only. Are you making these kids police?
Yeah, I don't know. I
I
might
don't
have some
know.
reservations with putting a juvenile in a spot like that, and just
I hear you. I
think of some of the issues that could
It's a
potentially
good idea on
arise.
paper, maybe.
Well, I know.
So-
Yeah.
It's a good.
Hey man, it's character builder.
I see
I mean, in
two-
my day, we would have done it, but not. It's
Yeah,
touchy
so I see
feely
two
to it.
issues, right? One is students are parking there Monday through Friday. And then the other issue is parents of kids involved in youth sports are there on the weekends. I couldn't, and this ties back to this, we all own the parking space in front of our house. I can only imagine what people feel like with foreign cars parking there. Has any, and I don't know that you would have knowledge about this, reach out to, I'm talking about youth sports specifically, the soccer programs, the lacrosse programs, the football programs, and just let them know, hey, honor the neighborhood, park at the high school. And that would take a campaign from within those groups. That's a pain in the neck, I'm sure. Additionally, is there signage, Director Berger, that the city could put up that says, yeah, this is our neighborhood, please respect it in a way and park at the high school for your child's youth sports program. I mean, just try and lay a little guilt on people. It doesn't hurt too much. And I throw that out as just a wild hair suggestion as much as anything else.
Yeah, not familiar with that type of signage, but we could come up with something, and obviously it would be voluntary, whether or not you comply with it.
Right.
Looks good on paper. Looks good on the side.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to think, Mike, just not to put more on your plate, but is there anything from a public works perspective in terms of parking that would fall? I mean, we have law enforcement, of course, but I'm just trying to think. And by me saying I'm trying to think, I'm asking you to think. From a public works perspective, I mean, in terms of dealing with parking, I mean, obviously installing maybe a massive parking lot, behind the high school, that could help alleviate that, but that's a different animal. I mean, what about 15-minute spots? But I mean, that doesn't help when I come home from work and I want to park in front of my school.
Right.
And then,
still have people.
yeah, and Deputy Pierce is taking me. I'm going, wait a minute, it's my house.
Yeah,
That sort of thing.
To Mr. Brennan's point, I'm pretty sure the high school has put things out, especially when they opened the new facility, to use their parking lot and not to park in the neighborhoods. Because I'd been to events and they stated that, but there's. So I know that they were proactive on that when the new fields went in.
Is there something like, I'm just thinking, on these days when they're all, the sporting events, just putting like little warning citations on all the cars. I mean, I know you could write citations, but couldn't somebody like at the school or somebody, I mean,
But warning them of what?
warning them that well, I guess they're allowed to park there, right? Okay.
Yeah, it is a public street, and
All right, well,
two
that's-
years ago, year and a half, when I got involved in this, one of the big problems that we were having discussion on, and why I got the old committee back together, was parking at Traintown.
Yeah.
And parking at Traintown, in the Traintown area of Clay Street, okay, there was a lot of commotion about this is Traintown's issue. And as we dug deeper into this, it turned out it wasn't just Traintown, it was all the businesses around that area. And one of the things that exacerbated the problem was when Caltrans put snow fence on Highway 12 in front of Traintown and restricted those 12 spots or whatever alongside the ditch there. And so that led to the issue. COVID created ebbs and flows, and that was a safe outdoor thing for you to do with your kids. So we had a real abnormal peak spike in the number of issues that we had on Clay Street. Well, it's really hard to look at any sort of program other than a permit parking program, 3-hour limits, and really those two are the only tools that we've got. Luckily, the problem hasn't been bad lately, and it kind of has gone away. But here again, with the new fields at the high school, we have a similar situation. And then on top of that, down at Prestwood, that gets really impacted on Saturdays. And where are those people going to park? They can't go over to the high school. Prestwood's lot isn't big enough. And so, and I mean, it's about youth sports. And everywhere we have a field, whether it's Napa, Sonoma, Santa Rosa, there's going to be impacted parking around that field on game day. And that's the nature of the beast. And it's always been that way. It's that way on open house night. It's that way on back to school night. And it's going to be that way on sports day. And unfortunately, that's just the way it's going to be. And until those people get out of their cars and start riding their bicycles or walking, they're going to continue to park close to the event. Yeah, but one of the things, though, that has gotten my gears spinning a little bit tonight, wheels turning, is I heard that one of the issues was, you know, potentially like people making left turns and screaming into the neighborhood too fast. Those buttons that we put at 5th and Napa are working great. I would be really surprised if a lot of people are cutting that corner still at high rates of speed. And I could talk to Chief Cutting about, and I have a note here to do that, about any sort of mitigative measures related to a speed issue that we could install out there to appease and help the situation. So, just some of the notes that I took.
Yeah. I just have a quick question. It's somewhat unrelated to this, but enforcement and whatnot has come up. And you mentioned that you're the traffic officer, but you're also a day shift unit, basically taking a beat and taking calls. In like the mid 2000s, Sonoma PD had 2 day shift officers and a traffic. So it was like 91, 92, and then either Mary or Tom 96 was the staffing for days. When did that change, and do you know, was that the sheriff's office contract got more expensive and the city said, hey, we're going to cut the traffic officer position? I'm just kind of trying to think, like a lot of these issues we're talking about, we've talked a lot about enforcement, whether it be prior meetings, this meeting, and I'm just kind of wondering, talking about staffing, if there's, benefit to potentially pushing the city to, throw a little bit more money at a dedicated traffic officer.
Right. And with my short time here, I unfortunately can't answer that accurately. I just don't have the history as far as when that was lost. But it was my understanding, too, that at one point they had a dedicated traffic officer, I think 2 day shift. I believe even two cover cars would come on. And at one point they were even fielding a school resource officer, too, at the high school.
Right.
And that was lost a few years ago. I know there's talk to bring that program back, the school resource officer, or a hybrid type model. But we have some staffing issues too, as far as trying to get our numbers up to be able to fulfill that. So it's just one of those challenges.
As far back as 2018, there were 2 traffic officers on staff, but as I was told by them at the time, so there were only and this may tie into what you're saying, only 2 officers, the 2 traffic officers, were LiDAR radar trained. So anybody else couldn't do LiDAR radar work. And if somebody was injured or on disability, if somebody was up in Santa Rosa at the court, it had a significant impact. I think there must be some way for us to goose the city council or otherwise and say, clearly, traffic enforcement is a question among us, but also among the people who've talked to us. And how do we do that? How do we ask for that? And the other thing I'm curious about is how can we ask, because I originally, Bob Law at the time, I don't know if he's still on staff, was the enforcement lawyer in town. He was the one who told me that they wrote a law, city ordinance, about advancing the prohibition of commercial vehicles in town and the buses. But that died because we just had turnover in council and stuff like that. Those things that we can do or can otherwise ask to have done?
And the committee can make recommendations. The city manager, through the city manager, city council will hear about that at a minimum. Whether or not they get brought forward, they could be agendized and brought forward. Now, Bob Smith, our code enforcement officer, he's still around, and I've heard a lot of talk about commercial vehicle traffic, and the problem with that is that it's through traffic, and so in order to write a ticket for that, you have to make a determination that that moving vehicle did not stop and do a job somewhere along that route of travel. And just talking about banning trucks or buses, the buses are going up to Casa Grande parking lot at the state parking lot behind the barracks. And how are you going to ban them from going in there? They're going to have to go some way around the plaza to get up to First Street East. Yeah. And I mean, if you had a semi truck going through town, and I've worked with Highway Patrol on this in Napa, because right there off of Silverado Trail, there's a cutover to Coombsville Road that's clearly marked that you cannot go on this road with over X number of tons vehicle. And these people were complaining about this because there was big trucks going up that street and clearly violating the street sign. Whereas through trucks is one thing in commercial vehicles, but prohibiting trucks over 4,000 gross vehicle weight, whatever. Highway Patrol came in their pickup truck and wrote tickets for like a week. And basically word got around and heavy rigs stopped using that road. With this is a little bit tougher. And I haven't figured out yet, everybody who's complaining about it, I mean, these are contractors going to your house. Yeah. These are Amazon delivery trucks or whatever, these commercial vehicles that are prohibited through traffic. They're all stopping at all these residences and homes and businesses along the way. So I don't think anybody wants to limit the amount of those things coming to their house and them getting a service, but at the same time, these shouldn't be cut-throughs for commercial vehicles.
So I get, and that was what I was told, is like I think it was the chief at the time I was talking, and he said, by law, or by city ordinance, I'm not allowed to drive my pickup truck down 5th Street East because of the way that's written. But we still have, for example, the Lucky 18-wheelers. We've got Old Dominion trucks coming down. We'll have 16 and 12-wheel FedEx trucks that are clearly not stopping at anybody's houses. And I don't want to hijack the conversation. It just seems like those asking city for an additional staff for traffic enforcement, those kinds of things, seems like everybody's curious about the possibility of doing that.
I think, and by no means would I suggest to Chief Cutting how to do his job, right. But I know that there are ways to get cops to do operations. You could bring in someone from Windsor, or not, like, for the day, for a shift, for, a deputy from Santa Rosa. Hey, here's some overtime. I know cops love overtime. So if the city could even incentivize it, say, hey, we'll cover that OT shift for the day. You know, hey, Adams, you're going to come work OT in Sonoma. You're going to do traffic enforcement ops from 7:30 a.m. You know, that sort of thing. So there are ways. There are ways to get to patch, to do a patchwork. It's to get more people to apply, to get more qualified applicants to become cops and stay here and have the paid positions. That's a little more difficult, but maybe just the city saying, yeah, we'll help fund enforcement operations if deputies come in from other parts of the county, even if it's a traffic enforcement op here and there once a month, whatever it is. And I know there's grant funding for it as well from the state to do traffic enforcement. But again, I know Chief Cutting and Sonoma PD have been definitely upping their operations with the 2-3 people they have on day watch, which is very commendable. So maybe something for the city to consider. Grant writing, freeing up funds to help bring a cop in to do some enforcement. But I think we're kind of going outside, going a little bit outside our purview, but we are the Traffic Safety Committee, so it involves traffic and safety.
And I could have further conversations with both Chief Cutting and the city manager about this. Yeah.
Okay. I think I'm going to move on here because here we are. Is there any further discussion on this item? I'm gonna wait. I need to open up to public comment. Any public comment on this matter? Okay, then I'm gonna.
There are no hands raised on
No
Zoom.
hands raised, and I'm gonna say one more time. Is there any further discussion from the committee members? Excellent. We're gonna the public comment is closed. This item is closed. We're gonna move on to the next one. Item 4.2: discussion about Public Works current and proposed projects that support roadway safety.
Yeah, and we've already talked about this once. This is the first time you've seen this graphic that Cathy's got up on the screen. Basically, I just we've discussed a lot of these measures tonight. The committee's aware of what Public Works plans are on current projects, and you're aware with some of the projects that we're going to be doing in the future. And here again, starting at the northwest corner of town, we got our safety lighting. And I'm just looking at that graphic that's up on your monitor. We've got our safety lighting that we installed at the intersection of Highway 12 and Verano Avenue going down 5th Street. That's a location for a proposed RRFB that we could be putting in, especially if the crosswalk lights are no longer working, the in-grounds. As you travel further down, we do have a working crossing that isn't the RRFB, but it's a functional pedestrian crossing right there at Safeway and Studley. And then if you go just down to the south from that on 5th Street still, we have I don't believe that the safety light signs at Sasserini are functional, and we're aware of that, and we're going to replace those. Then we have the RRFB future potential location that came up, which has in-ground lighting at Whole Foods on 2nd Street. And then if you go over to Broadway, we have the 4 RRFBs, 2 that are in, 2 proposed. And then south of MacArthur, we also have the flashing lights that that are working at the highway, and you'll see them right there. They straddle the future crossing that's going in within the next month at Malay. And then the last thing that we have is at 5th and Androoks, we have I'm not sure if any of you have seen this or not, it's been in for a little over a week. We have the flashing red stop sign for southbound traffic on 5th Street at Androoks. And we are also going to buy one to put in for northbound. Those are about $3,000 a pop, and they're fairly easy to put in. They're solar powered. And we're going to get, I believe, 3 of them so that we can put one in there at Androoks for northbound, and also another location TBD, because we're getting some good feedback on those. That one that we put in, and so that's something that isn't even on the map yet, but it's planned.
I've definitely seen it. I know Cathy has seen it. They flash 24/7.
As long as there was a battery.
Oh, as long as there's a battery.
Yeah, and I mean, I haven't heard about it going out yet, so I'm thinking we got the solar power working really good.
Okay. I'm only curious. I have to ask this question for the person that lives at that corner. I mean, it's flashy. I'm thinking of the Seinfeld Kenny Rogers Roasters episode. If anybody remembers that. I love that it's right there. It made me very happy to see it. But that's why I asked if it's on 24/7. Has there been any feedback from anybody who may live right there?
No.
Okay. That's a good thing. But I feel.
And I'm starting to think about louvers on the
that's a
house side,
because there's a bed. There's it's right there. But I definitely like it. It's fantastic.
Yeah, and just to summarize that, if there's any further comment, we've got descriptions about the RRFBs, the safety lighting, the radar speed signs, the lighted stop sign. If there's any further comment, questions, we could have that discussion.
I'm just going to throw out that intersection of Verano by McDonald's. I ride my bike out for lunch out on Arnold Drive, heaven forbid, once a week. But that intersection is terrific for me. I don't feel 100% safe. I'm still watching out, but it's fantastic. It's a big sign. People observe it, and it makes it safer. It feels like to me for people to cross in all directions there.
Yeah, and that's having the single phase dedicated to pedestrians only in all directions. Yeah, that Caltrans, Sonoma County Transportation Authority, the City of Sonoma, and Sonoma County Water Agency partnered together to get a lot of work done in a little amount of time. That intersection is going to get redone. The biggest problem that it has, it does not have dedicated left turn lanes for eastbound, westbound on Verano Avenue. So the queue fills up for the left turn lane. And at the same time, you used to have pedestrian movement that the left turn cut through. And so because there's so much traffic there, eastbound and westbound, people are sitting there waiting for sometimes 2 and 3 cycles of the left turn lane to proceed. And so you're gassing it at the last second. You're trying to get through. And the last thing you're thinking about is the pedestrian that went in at the last second running across trying to get through. Caltrans has fast-tracked that project. They're doing concurrent operations. And, people say, wow, fast-track, 2 to 3 years. Are you kidding me? When you talk about planning, funding, and putting together PS&E, plan specification estimate, get it out the door, get it bid, get a contractor, and Caltrans has a way of doing things. They follow a very regimented design process and planning process, and they don't cut corners. And when you're talking about these $1 million jobs, multi-million-dollar jobs, that's the right approach. And people, it takes a long time to get that right and then get out in the field and build it right. And so credit to them. They're fast tracking that project. They did the all phase crossing first, and just the fact that they did that is a little bit commendable because that's not typical. And so for them to rush that through, and they're doing it in at least 2 phases, and the city went in, we were able to install that safety lighting in partnership with Sonoma County and Sonoma County Water Agency, and really fast track getting those pedestrian lights in because there was a blind spot between the sidewalk and where the push button is, because all the intersection lighting went out into the intersection for the push button out on the island. And so we put those 2 solar lights in. I'm going to go out there when the intersection project comes up and claim those back and put them at my yard because we could use some more lighting at the yard. But basically, that was it wasn't super expensive, and it was something that we could get done and address one of the safety issues that had been brought up out there. So even though it's right at the edge of our right-of-way, it's not in our right-of-way. There's a lot of different agencies working to make that a safer place.
I did just have one more thing, as I know we're trying to draw this to a close, but you mentioned if we have any questions about RFBs, traffic calming measures, that sort of thing. In terms of us as committee members, when we have our collective thoughts, do we need to wait to submit a traffic hazard reporting form? I mean, there's one that stands out in my head for me personally, but I want to make sure that whatever suggestion I may have is done correctly, and we have the right form to do it. Should I just wait? Should I just have my neighbors fill out a reporting form?
That's the standard way.
Okay.
You mean versus bringing it up tonight?
Yeah. Oh, I'm not going to bring it up tonight, but I'll bring it up. I'll bring it up another night. Tonight.
Yeah, the standard way of doing it is to submit a form. That's how you're going to get it logged, get a response, and we're going to put it in the queue to start working on it.
Okay. Perfect.
Yeah, and just, hearing some feedback tonight. I didn't come here tonight for any direction from the committee, but I think that, what we need to focus on in Public Works is looking at Fifth Street in between Spain and Verano, and, creatively looking at a couple of these other ones and trying to get Spain Street from the plaza to Fifth. That's in the queue. That's going to get addressed. We did a speed survey out there. The average speed of the vehicles is 26 miles an hour. We're going to look at doing a traffic circle is something we're going to be looking into. And council will be involved in that prior to us putting something like that out there. And I'll be working with the city manager on that. But I think that those are the areas that I'm going to be focused on. And now would be the time for anybody else to say, well, yeah, don't forget this other one.
Just real quick question about the 26 miles per hour. Last meeting, everybody went through a lot of statistics. And a woman brought up an interesting point after I heard the 26 miles an hour, and that is, and my experience is on Spain Street, during commute, it's a stop and go kind of a thing. Can you break out, or does it even matter based on, it sounds like you're going ahead with this project, which I encourage in terms of the tools you've got to use. Like, what's the speed like from 9 to 3, or when it's not the heavy traffic use? Does it increase that average speed?
If you'll remember with Fifth Street and Napa, and I don't know if I have any of that information with me tonight, but we can record the speed of every single vehicle. Right. We could drill down and get the speed of every single vehicle that goes through at every time. And so with our radar system that we have, all that data is available. But I have drilled down into it to make sure that everything that summarizes it is accurate. And the summaries, like what's in our agenda packet, Cathy, if you could scroll towards that. The summaries of what's in our agenda packet for Spain Street tonight, where I did the survey, which is, 2/3, 3/4 of the way through. These are very characteristic of the numbers. And so, there was a comment made tonight about, and let's go to, just go up just a little bit. Let me see the title, speed versus time. No, keep going up. Okay. Car versus time. This, I believe, is a very good representation of how, no, this is not it. I want, it's speed versus time.
Speed versus time.
Speed versus time on the previous page. Sorry about that. Just go down a little bit. The other way. Sorry. There we go. Speed versus time, so I can see the thing at the top.
Okay.
Yeah. Now, what you see here is, and go up just a hair so I can see that bottom axis. That's good enough. That's good enough. Okay, this was a 1, 2, 3, 4-day cycle. We captured 4 continuous days. Looking at this, I don't see any anomalies other than it looks like on Saturday there was less traffic, and on Wednesday there was the most. And I can drill down into this data and get the per car, each per car speed for any of these areas. Midnight is down where the green line is approaching the zero graph, because when we don't have any hits for 15 minutes, it goes down to 0. So if a car doesn't go through for 15 minutes, and you can see these are all about 24 hours apart. And so there's a lot of information in here that we can gather, and we won't, and I'm not going to use this to mistakenly think that because morning traffic has a commute between Napa Street and Napa Road on 5th, because morning traffic has a commute and cars are bumper to bumper, that's not going to affect it. That's not going to affect our engineering analysis. Yeah, that would bring a lower speed. But here again, you don't have that condition on Fifth Street in between Spain Street and Verano. Those cars are probably slowing down at the crosswalk where the bike trail is, and other than that, they're pretty much going the same clip or speeding up a little bit. Yeah. So there's a lot of data in there. We're not going to jump to any conclusion because cars are going slower because there's all of them stopped. Yeah. And typically we don't do speed surveys on those roads. Yeah, that's boring. The speed of a stopped car.
Since you're talking about specifically, could I?
No, well, the public comment is closed for this meeting.
Thanks a lot. Have a good night.
No, we're on. This was just a discussion about future proposed projects, so they will be discussed at future meetings for sure. So.
This is specific to West Spain Street and something that was put in by the city in input to you guys about, it affects our neighborhood directly, and I just need to make a comment.
And technically, we haven't had public comment on this item yet.
Yeah, this like I said, these are items that are for future consideration, and there will be public comment. So there will be a time and a forum to make the comment, but right now is not that time. So moving on, Director Berg, I believe you're done with the future proposed projects and everything, and we can move on to any individual members' reports or comments. Any individual member has any? Nothing, I'm seeing none. And then any staff comments for including police, fire, public works, anybody from city staff, it looks like no. Okay. On that note, is there a motion to, I do that this is the third time I've done that. I'm gonna adjourn the meeting then.
All right. It's interesting, you mentioned no, there isn't